we're going to kick off with Jared joining us today. Jared, good morning and good afternoon, sir. Just so the audience knows, where are you calling from today?
Calling in from New York City.
All right, from the East Coast, from New York, New York. Welcome to the Elevator Pitch Showdown. As you know, we have created this platform to allow our founders to have an opportunity to pitch their idea to the universe, but also as a means of improvement. There's always elements of your elevator pitch that you can evolve, develop, and improve. So we're excited to get some time with you today and chat about your platform. How the process works is I'm going up an elevator, as you can see. For those of you that are listening just via audio, we have a virtual elevator that we have, and what will happen is this elevator is 1 minute long, right? So it goes from here and it's 1 minute to the top, and basically we want to time the session, because every elevator pitch, being able to have a clear, concise message is important. And so we're gonna drive that. And most importantly, let's try to have some fun with the experience. Okay, Jared, are you ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, so we'll get it going. And Christine, when we hit the 1 minute mark, if you don't mind, just you can show everyone how you raise your hand so that they know that their time is up and they should be aiming to conclude. Okay, so you can see Christine's hands there. She will raise her hand and we'll go accordingly. All right, so let's get started. All right, I'll introduce myself, Jared, and we'll get going. Are you ready, sir?
Yeah.
All right, Jared. My name is Singh. I am a New York City real estate developer turned startup investor. Tell me a little bit about what you're working on, how you're changing the world, and how I can help. Go ahead.
Sure. So we all know that medical workers have long, exhausting hours in hospitals, especially during COVID. But what most people don't realize is that a large portion of these workers are flat out burned out. With 24-hour shifts, a consistent lack of sleep, and a large dependency on caffeine, this is hardly surprising. And with hospital call rooms that aren't maintained and cleaned, there's little opportunity for doctors and nurses to take a rest during their shifts. Our startup Nappr is going to change that. Nappr is a marketplace that allows users to find and book nap spaces on the go at nearby homes and businesses, directly from their mobile devices. This will allow medical workers to get a much needed power nap right near their hospitals, whenever they want to and at the venues of their choice. Studies have shown that even a short 20-minute power nap can boost alertness, improve memory and performance, and most importantly of all, help prevent burnout. And for somebody whose job it is to help save lives every day, this is obviously critical. Our revenues are generated from two channels: a 20% commission from every transaction, and a membership model where users can pay a monthly fee to get extra perks and benefits. We plan to launch this year in New York City, and we are currently raising a $600,000 seed round that will help fund some product development, marketing, and additional personnel costs. So what do you say? Let's work together and help save the world one small nap at a time.
Excellent, fantastic. That was great. Thank you, Jared, for the complete story, right? I mean, I think you did a great job. So let's get some feedback on Jared's pitch on the Nappr platform. Okay. As we always say, trying to get as much feedback is important. I feel like you've structured your pitch really nicely, actually, Jared, right? The story arc about the problem, what the solution is like, and kind of where you make money. Okay. And also, like, what you did have an ask at the end, right? And I tried to parlay that into a question around, I did introduce myself as a real estate developer, right? So that was a little bit of a hint, right? Because there are probably people in the real estate space that you probably want to collaborate. But let's get some feedback for him on the chat, right? Any feedback, I'm happy to relay as well. But let's talk a little bit about Nappr, right? We all have heard about the nurse burnout, right? And Jared, as you were pitching with everything, with every pitch that we always try to look at, we always try to elevate, right? Pardon the pun, because it is an elevator pitch, but elevate it. And part of this journey is for me to get the right, from an investor standpoint, ask the right questions, right? I want to make sure that I have all the right pieces there, right? And obviously the first question is around, how active do you think that this business will be? When you think about a hospital, right, and people wanting to get a bit of a break, right? There's part of your business model that I feel needs to be addressed, because the napping location probably needs to be very close to the hospital, correct? Right?
Yes.
If they have a defined window of time, right? And remember, with all startups, there's always the option to do nothing, right? The option to do nothing. And so I'm wondering, like, the value proposition around the location, right? Because they would probably need to be like literally next door in order to because they only have a certain bit of time off. They need to go, they need to kind of get into their nap mood, right? Everyone has this kind of process that they need to get into, the dark curtains. I've started during COVID, I've discovered that napping is a bit of an art, a bit of a science, right? So you need to, like, sometimes it might even be during the day, but walking there, getting into the mode of getting ready for sleep, and getting into that sleep, making sure the sleep is powerful and impactful so I can get back, right? And so, Jared, in my mind, and again, great pitch, but I want to just continue the process and level you up a little bit more, is how do you talk to me about that, right? The user journey, right? I wanted to know a little bit about the user journey, and how do you ensure that it's accessible in the way that they're going to use it, and when they're taking their naps, it's the best power nap they've ever had, okay? Because we don't want to just provide naps, we want to make sure it's the ultra, hyper power nap, right? That just kind of changes their lives, right? So tell me more about that, Jared. Go ahead.
Yeah, the places would have to be nearby their hospitals, within maybe a few blocks. And if you look at Manhattan, we have a lot of hospitals here, and there are apartments right on top of them. So it could work where, these people are listing their homes block or two away, and then the doctors and nurses only have to walk maybe a minute or two or 5 maybe to get to them. How do we ensure that they're good? There is a feedback system similar to Airbnb. So if you don't like your nap, you can leave bad feedback and say why it was bad, which is going to be important, right? People need to be able to rely on this. They don't have a ton of time in these shifts. They have maybe half an hour to spare. So it is crucial that they are able to get to these places quickly and get in and be able to rely on the cleanliness and the bed, and get back to their hospitals. So yeah, there's a lot at play here, and a lot of things have to go right. But I think if everything is checked and vetted, and we vet the spaces ourselves to make sure that they're good, I think it'll go a long way into making this work effectively.
So you've addressed the location perspective and kind of the Airbnb components. Have you thought about how to optimize sleep, right? And so, Jared, I'll give you this example. Having met you now, I always try to, like, understand the mechanics of what the startups are doing, what you're working on. So I went to this place called Sleep Country Canada. It's like the largest, like, mattress distributor, retailer in Canada. And I went there, and there is a difference, the pillow that's being used, the mattress that's being used. There's all these different kind of human elements that require you to be able to adjust and change to optimize sleep, right? So tell me about the sleep optimization. Have you thought about that? The audio that you're listening to, the firmness of the bed, the the type of pillow, all these, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really know this. I've just been sleeping on the bed that my wife tells me to sleep on, right? So I don't, you know what I mean? But tell me about this. Tell me about the sleep element.
Yeah, and everyone has their own preference, obviously, when it comes to sleep. Like you said, the firmness of the mattress, the pillow is important, how dark the room is, whether you have an eye mask. I use an eye mask every night, and it's tough for me to sleep without one. So yeah,
Mm,
I think if hosts are accommodating to this and they're willing to buy these things for their nappers, I think they'll get more feedback, more positive reviews for doing that. And we can encourage the host to do this. We
mm,
can tell them, this is typically, what people want when they take a nap.
yeah.
They do want a dark room. They want, a relatively comfy bed, a good pillow, and we can also have the app filter by these things too. So,
Mm,
uh, certain bed type, size, things like that, amenities. So
got
if
it.
people really need stuff like this, like white noise or whatever they prefer, then they can filter by that.
Got it. So Jared, we have some fun and interesting questions from the chat, if I may, in no particular order. There is this, there's the obvious question around why are hospitals not doing this for their staff, right? Why are hospitals not providing clean beds for their staff, right? And I think you know the answer. I think you brought this up in your pitch. You did address this point, but just tell us a little bit about that. There's also a question around scale, right? And location. There's a great question here, which does come to mind. How are you going to prevent it from it to becoming a hookup place between medical staff? Okay, so that's
Yeah,
interesting as well. So, what are your thoughts on some of these points, Jared? Go ahead.
sure. So it's really interesting that hospitals don't clean and maintain these rooms for their workers. You think that they would because it would help everyone, the hospitals included, but they just don't. I think based on the feedback that we've heard from doctors, hospitals don't think that their workers would use them, so they don't clean them. And because they don't clean them and maintain them, they're not used. So it's kind of a catch-22. And every doctor that we've spoken to pretty much has said, yeah, I won't even step foot in a call room. It's just too dirty, or it's just
Yeah,
not maintained, and I don't want to do it. So
got it. Got
yeah,
it. Would Nappr eventually even consider managing that space for the hospitals and providing like best in class nap pods, for instance, in that space?
we'd consider it. And actually, a few doctors suggested that we do that because some of them said that they couldn't leave a hospital in the middle of their shift and they would use a call room if they could.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another idea we could consider.
Jared, another question that's going through my mind is when I think about this, I want to know where your bigger picture is, right? And so I guess two questions that are going through my mind. Number one is how much more profitable is it for somebody to leverage the Nappr platform versus running a typical Airbnb? Because what my view is that when you run an Airbnb, you have a one bedroom apartment that you're renting out for say 24 hours, okay, to one person. Suppose from a New York, Manhattan perspective, that's 800 square feet of space, right? Not big, but
Hmm.
what I understand for you with this NAP environment, with the right type of utilization and occupancy, you could have like, 20, 30, 40 people within 24 hours, all occupying maybe 100 of the 800 square feet. And it would be more profitable. Can you tell me a little bit about, can you compare and contrast Airbnb and a typical Airbnb in this?
Yeah, so Airbnb is obviously overnight stay. And I actually think a lot of Airbnb hosts would try this out because if they have a free day in their schedule and they don't have anything booked, they can just list on our platform and get additional revenue
Mhm.
from Nappr. I don't know if they would list us instead of Airbnb because Airbnb is pretty profitable for them. And if they only get 2 or 3 naps booked, on our platform, then they're probably making more on Airbnb versus us. But I think it's a good complement for them to Airbnb so that they can fill in their unused spaces.
Because I'm thinking about even the way you structure the rooms, Jared. The rooms would be different, wouldn't they? The room structure would be different. Like when I think about an optimal, like let's assume that you get it going and you have a couple of people with Airbnbs that are using your platform. But once you kind of hit that demand curve where you need to have like, you know what I mean? Correct me if I'm wrong. Like I'm actually thinking, Jared, like the sleep pods in Japan, right? Or Korea, right? They do this already, bringing that to the American market, right? Where they go in, they have literally a sleep pod. It's kind of like, I don't know if you know the sleeper trains where you just go in, jump into your pod, you got your screen, you got your bed, you got your, you know, and you walk in and there's like 10, 15 different pods that you can jump into, right? You got like a firm mattress, you know, you have like a firm pillow, you got this sound, you got that sound. This one smells like mango because some people might want to sleep with the mango. I don't know, right? But you get what I'm saying, Jared?
Yeah.
I think the configuration, so I'll explain where I'm going with this, Jared. You know, I enjoyed your pitch. I think this is a product that people need, but I wanted to visualize the big picture on this, you know? I wanted to visualize how real estate developers are going to be embedding and building this in. And we start off with the medical community because it's obviously needed and they can afford it. But then as, you know, when I'm thinking about what Nappr is, Nappr, you know, I feel like this could be so much more. This could be that kind of the mental, like the break that you need, okay? Because we are in this world. I look at it a little bit different, Jared, if I may. I look at it like everyone needs sleep. Jared, everyone needs sleep. We're in this world where Netflix is competing with sleep. Okay. Netflix is there to compete with your sleep now. Okay. What does that mean? When you binge watch Netflix, the next day you're sleepy, right? You know, and yes, you can go and you can have your morning coffee to get you going. And then what happens is you have that afternoon, you know what I mean? And this is something that everyone faces. But just if you think about like gig workers in general, okay, you have nurses and all these other professionals, but gig workers, people that are working late night shifts, Uber drivers that are driving like, you know, 20 hours a day, they need a quick, you know, relaxation, restaurant workers, people that are working at the 24/7 convenience store, all of these people, Jared, could use your service. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You know?
And big picture, that's what we're aiming for. We're starting
Good.
with medical because physicians and nurses tend to be burned out more than anyone.
Sure.
But we do want to open this up to all the people you mentioned and also people on airport layovers. They're generally just like sleeping on chairs right now, you know?
Sure.
So
Sure. Yeah.
long
Well,
haul truck drivers.
depending on the airport, right? Like in Canada right now, they're not even sleeping on chairs, but that's a different conversation altogether.
Yeah.
But Jared, do you get what I'm saying with this? Right?
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
I visualize the big picture, right? I look at this as like, you know, a way where a builder will think about the fact that they are going to just like, you know, I'm building this mixed residential commercial space, and we're going to have a dedicated Nappr space available, right, for the
Mhm.
community, and it's structured and set up in a different way. Jared, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's optimized, right? Like I see you know, that you know, soundproof, audio proof, like little, you know, where you could have like 10, 15 people sleeping, napping at the same time, right? Remember, we're in New York, right? In New York, we're used to being connected and
Yeah.
like, you know, sharing spaces. Jared, does that make sense?
It does.
And so the idea of being able to build the process through, because you're looking for money, how much are you looking to raise?
600,000.
Okay. And 600K is going to get you to where? How many locations are you going to have?
It's going to help us launch for the most part. We have a prototype in Android and iOS, and we need to do a little more development on those. we'd like to hire an additional engineer, and we have some other administrative costs.
Okay.
But
how many locations will you have with that?
Well, initially we're using the Airbnb model where we don't own the spaces.
Sure.
I would like to have our own spaces eventually. I think the brick and mortar model is good for what we're doing. So we're not going to have any spaces ourselves. We're not going to own them at the onset, but
yeah. So, but with your early stage of funding, is there a certain number of sites that you would like to have, like, a certain number of Airbnb players that are going to be coming on board for this round of funding?
yeah, I would like to have 20 to 30 spaces and 1 or 2 hospitals on board for the launch.
Got it. And you've identified that in the Manhattan area. You know where they're going to be. You have all that stuff mapped out, right?
Yes, we're currently looking at several hospitals in Manhattan. We haven't narrowed it down to 1 or 2 yet, but there's several to choose from here. So we're still in that process.
Got it. Now, and my last question, Jared, for you, and again, this relates to use of funds, right? As we know, like in the current market, right? When we're chatting in August 2022, the markets are down. And so, one question that's going through an investor's mind might be, how does Jared and the Nappr team identify locations, right? Because real estate is about location, 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 right? So tell me a little bit about your thought process on that. Go ahead.
On where the locations would be?
Yeah. Like, how do you select, like with any successful real estate play, right? For instance, you always find that the person was really good at identifying location. They have a Midas touch in that sense. How are you going to identify? Suppose 600K is given to you today.
Yeah.
How do you know where you're going to, how do you identify? Because you mentioned hospitals, but is there more to this to ensure that there's a little bit more, you're reducing the risk of the early stage of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. That's a good question. Location wise, we're really just trying to hone in on areas near hospitals. So, it's obviously important for what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if the funding will drive that, at least in the seed round, but we are going to use some of it for marketing. So
okay. We'll see where that goes.
Marketing near those hospitals, making sure that people are aware that this exists.
Got it. All right, Jared. So again, some great feedback coming through the platform. And as you can read in the chat, right, there are several people, including Drew Kenning, who runs a startup that can actually help you identify good real estate, by the way. Okay. So there's a couple of connection points happening right now live, which is beautiful. Jared, I also would like to introduce you to a developer, and we'll take this offline, that has reached out to us that is looking to build, condos near medical facilities here in Canada. And so I do want to connect the dots for you with him as well, because I think it would be good for you to prototype. So that's part of the journey with the Elevator Pitch Showdown. It's also about educating the broader audiences and seeing if there's kind of connection points that are happening, right? And so what I'm going to do is, Jared, would you like me to pitch your idea back to you?
Sure.
Right. I'm going to pitch. You're looking for $600,000 in funding. Your goal is to ensure that your spaces are, between 2 and 3 blocks from a hospital currently, correct? Right?
Yep.
Driven those components there. What I'm going to do, Jared, I think your pitch was actually pretty good, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the big picture. I'm going to elevate it. Okay. Right. So to make this interesting, part of this journey is just to listen. And sometimes we get great pitches and then I have to try to level it up. But I'm going to talk about the core problem and how this is going to impact the broader scope. and see if there's, just to kind of give it a little bit of a different spin, Jared. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, Jared. So you get to be, Jared, you get to be anyone you want, and I'll do the same 1 minute, right? So we're hitting the top. You can introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Mark Cuban, and thank you for pitching to me today.
Hi. Hi. Hi, Mark. My name is Singh, and I'm part of the Nappr team. As you know, over the course of the last 2 years, the COVID pandemic has created a lot of challenges in the medical space. We have a lot of people that have been overworked, a lot of nurses and doctors that are overworked and are hitting burnout. And this is creating a big challenge in the healthcare space overall. And we decided to look into this and see how we could help. Now, there's a lot of things that people do in terms of managing the hospital, but the most important thing that we discovered is people just need to take a moment and grab a nap. And shockingly, this is currently not available in the current, in most hospitals. There's no place for people to rest and relax. So the Nappr platform is the next generation Airbnb platform that allows anyone and in the medical community to pull themselves out of their 36-hour work schedule and get that power nap. We've looked at creating these spaces at a 2 to 3 block radius from their location. We want to make sure it's simple, quick, and easy, and we optimize their sleep using some of our technology that's going to make sure that they get the best nap possible so that they can move forward in their work, reduce burnout, and ultimately help the populations that they're working with. I'd love to chat to you about the launch strategy. We're looking for $600,000 of investment. And through this investment, we see this not just impacting hospital workers, but gig workers, people driving Ubers, every single person that is looking to kind of get that extra nap in. We think that we can revolutionize and create that next generation micro sleep, a power nap, Airbnb platform of the future. Would love to catch up over a coffee and chat more. Thank you. All right, Jared, that was my pitch. Okay. I went a little bit long, but I wanted to weave in the secondary bigger picture element to that,
Mm-hmm.
The big picture, right? I want that to come out in your pitch, right? I want I want the world to rethink about spaces. And I have the visual in my mind, Jared. It's so obvious to me where this could play, right? And wherever there's a street corner where there's a coffee shop, there should also be a Nappr outlet, right? Why
Yeah,
not,
I agree.
right? And I want that to come out right in your pitch. It seems audacious, okay, but it can happen, right? And this idea, imagine I'm going to go for my coffee caffeine fix, but you know what? Like I've already had a coffee this morning. I actually just need 30 minutes, right? So instead of going for a coffee and a cigarette, which is what a lot of people do in New York, you see them getting their breaks, they can, pop in and get their 30-minute power nap at one of your outlets, And so that's kind of where my thinking is. But thank you for your time. Look forward to seeing how we can continue to help your journey. There's a couple of messages in the chat for you, Jared. Thank you very much, right? And we look forward to being part of your success. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful day. Cheers.